need to talk about one of, if not the biggest storyline coming out of the NFL draft, which is Jeff Ulbrich, the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator's son, Jax, prank calling Shedeur Sanders during round 2 of the draft. This has been a huge story online, and I want to kind of run through all the facts and then my 2 cents on the whole subject. So let's just start by reviewing the facts, and you can read Jax Ulbrich's apology Instagram story to Shedeur, which he very nicely misspelled Shedeur in the second sentence. So good job, Jax. But here are the facts, all right? So Jeff Ulbrich, Falcons DC, right? His iPad was left open, as the Atlanta Falcons put it, while Jax was home from college, an Ole Miss student, and he came across Shedeur's exclusive draft phone number because he got a whole new phone just for the NFL draft, and he emailed all 32 teams, here's my draft phone number. And so Jax came across that phone number, wrote it down, and then during the Saints pick at number 40, his friend used that phone number to call Shedeur Sanders. There's a video of them kind of laughing, kind of like hyenas, and said, hey, this is Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints, and are you tired of waiting? And Shedeur's like, yeah, let's get it. And he goes, well, you're going to keep waiting. And then they hung up. So that's what happened. And then from there, obviously, it snowballed with, oh, Shedeur got prank called? Oh, Shedeur got prank called by the son of an NFL coach. By the way, it's not a very good look for the Falcons on so many fronts. But when it's Deion Sanders' son, you know, the guy who you have in your Ring of Honor, yeah, his son getting prank called by your defensive coordinator's son, not a good look on so many levels, but that's really the cherry on top. Now, Atlanta put out a statement of their own, somewhat explaining how this happened and saying we're going to do some type of investigation to make sure it doesn't happen again. There's no investigation. Like, this is not – so many times we see in society when something, you know, bad or maybe tragic or just something happens, there's a huge kind of overreaction or overcorrection to ensure that never happens again. For example, my hometown, they used to throw, like a lot of hometowns during the 4th of July parade, candy out. Well, one time someone threw candy and hit someone in the eye, and that ended candy being thrown for 4th of July. That was not the proper reaction to that issue. It was just a little bit of a fluke. I don't think there is an investigation that needs to be done here to make sure it doesn't happen again. The investigation is, hey, coaches, don't leave your iPads around your shithead sons. Deal? Deal. Now, I also will add, I don't really understand how he came across the phone number because it says that he came across an open iPad. Was it open as if, like, it was on? Like, meaning, you know, it was unlocked and everything, and it was just sitting there, and then he knew where to go in the email to find. He knew what email to find. Was it premeditated? Like, did Jax go, I've got this idea. I want to get Shedeur's number. Let me sneak onto my dad's iPad. Or was the iPad open on the email, and then it all just, you know, came into his mind of, oh, that's really funny. Because it does seem a little unlikely that the iPad was sitting on a coffee table, unlocked, sitting on that email from Shedeur Sanders. No, my guess is Jeff was probably a little bit too lenient with the iPad password and was like, here, Jax, if you ever need this iPad, I got a whole bunch. And on that iPad was an email account with all those email access to it. So, like, that part's a little, like, fishy to me. That's what I'll add. But my overarching 2 cents on this is, like, that's obviously not a good thing, right? I'm not here to be a defender, but when I see Matthew Berry and a lot of other people basically acting like this entire Ulbrich family should be sent to the prison in El Salvador, we've probably gone too far. And I'm not the El Salvador part's a joke, but Matthew Berry did say verbatim, you know, the entire Ulbrich family is responsible for this. There's 3 kids in this family. I don't know if the other 2 are boys and girls, but I doubt Jax's younger brother or sister should be held responsible, as Matthew Berry put it. Literally said the entire family should be held responsible. So my 2 cents on the whole thing is I feel like this is getting way more attention than it maybe should be getting because it's Shedeur Sanders. If this happened to any other prospect, let's be honest with one another, would it be getting this much attention? No. Is this a crime against humanity? No. Is this a dick, rude thing to do? Yes. Should Jax be punished by Jeff? Yes, as strange as that might sound for him being 21 years old. Did Jax make a mistake? Yeah, but it's not the mistake as in like he accidentally called Shedeur. No, he made a mistake with the entire idea of the whole thing, and it probably says a lot about Jax as a person, and that's going to be punishment arguably enough moving forward in every single job interview he goes into. You're the guy who prank called Shedeur Sanders. That's really revealing about your character. We're going to go a different way with a different candidate. So I don't believe that there should be some huge punishment that comes down. The Falcons are embarrassed themselves because it's Deion's son, and it's just not a good professional look that an iPad was that, easily accessible by your coach's son. I don't buy this lie of the iPad was left open. No, this isn't a crappy like mid-2000s drama where you can just sneak onto someone's computer by typing password as their password. So I feel like Jeff really couldn't have done anything differently other than maybe don't raise a son who would find this funny, but that's a whole deeper, issue. My guess is Jax, knew his dad's iPad password. Like, my family has the same 4-digit code for a lot of things, so he probably has the same password for a lot of things, and Jax knew what that password would probably be, went to the iPad when his dad wasn't around, and had the idea of let's get Shedeur's number, did some digging, found it, and then wrote it down on his own phone, and then closed the iPad and put it back in his dad's backpack. And Jeff had no idea this happened. So I don't really know what preemptive measures could have been put in place to avoid this from happening. So sure, the Falcons look, really poor here and really bad, but what would Terry Fontenot have done differently from January to now to prevent this from happening? Have a meeting with, I've got this gut feeling that one of your sons is going to screw up in a little bit. So all of your families, they're going to go to Mexico for the next 3 months, and they can't see. Basically, all your families, we're going to just go to the White Lotus Hotel in Thailand, and no technology for the next 3 months. So enjoy. I don't think there should be a punishment for the Falcons. Jax, sure, from his family. I don't think the NFL should swoop in and take a draft pick from Atlanta, fine Atlanta. This is very far removed now from Terry Fontenot and the Falcons. This is an employee's son on his own doing a really stupid thing. Not Terry Fontenot giving a phone number to a stranger and then saying, it'd be funny if you prank called it. Very, very far removed. All right. I didn't want to mention this at the beginning of the video because you all get mad. We do have a tiny Kirk Cousins update. I'm sorry. Ian Rappaport hopped on the Pat McAfee show, and he talked about Kirk Cousins. I'll keep it brief, and I'll just kind of sprint through this so you guys can at least stay up to speed on what could happen. But on the Pat McAfee show, he said, quote, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't go to Pittsburgh, I think that's a possibility for Kirk Cousins. It feels like the other possibilities kind of don't exist after the draft. The longer this goes, it feels like he's going to be the Falcons' backup. So that's what Rap Sheet said on McAfee. And this is more or less what I've been talking about for 2 weeks now. Ever since the Browns signed Joe Flacco, it's down to one team, Pittsburgh. Because with Rodgers mentioning retirement when he hopped on McAfee 2 weeks ago now, it, flew the door wide open for the possibility of the Falcons and the Steelers making a Kirk Cousins trade. Since the draft has passed now, any trade would obviously involve a 2026 draft pick. I think it would look something like this. A conditional 5th-round pick. Justin Fields last year was traded from the Bears to the Steelers for a conditional 6 that could jump up to a 4th. Kind of like when Calvin Ridley was dealt to Jacksonville. It would be dependent on playing time, team success, player success. I could see it being something where, hey, it's a 5th-round pick, and if Kirk Cousins plays more than 50% of the snaps, then it jumps up to a 4th. Or if the Steelers make the playoffs, it jumps up to a 3rd. You know what I mean? Something to that effect right there. All right, that's all the Kirk Cousins, I promise. Next up, I've got more on the draft I want to talk about. But really quickly, I want to thank every single one of you that subscribed and liked and commented and just followed our NFL draft coverage. We are closing in on 36,000 subscribers now. So if you haven't yet, scroll on down and click that sub button. So let's talk a little bit about Atlanta's draft class here and leave the tabloid and the Kirk Cousins stuff behind us because the Falcons, I thought, had a great draft. I see starter, I see future starter and future starter. I mean, you got three guys who I could see by week 18 all starting. But here's where I was caught a little bit off guard, and here's where I went wrong. When they selected Jalon Walker and James Pearce, I was like, hey, Jalon Walker is going to be an inside linebacker, and James Pearce is going to be an outside linebacker, and both of them are going to be on the field at two different positions. And then Jeff Ulbrich hopped in front of the media, did not talk about Jax yet, but that's coming up soon, I'm sure, and said, we plan to use Jalon Walker as an outside linebacker, as an edge guy. So let's talk about that for a moment, because at Georgia, in his one season as a true starter, Walker was all over the defense. He was a chess piece for Kirby Smart, and he was a very good, successful pass rusher. I mean, 11 and a half sacks over his 2 seasons, and that was not his primary job, right? It's kind of like if Michael in The Office was better, which maybe he was, at the telecom sales job than actually being the regional manager. His part-time job, Walker, as a pass rusher, is where he popped out the most, and Atlanta feels that if we just give him more opportunities at that role, 5.5, 6.5 sacks is going to balloon up to 8, 9, 10 sacks. But this is going to be a change for Walker. Not that it's a fish out of water level, but he played 203 snaps last year on the defensive line as more of an edge rusher. He had 258 snaps playing in the box more as an inside linebacker. So it's not that he is foreign to the idea of coming off the edge, but it was not his primary job at Georgia. So I think this could be something that requires a little bit of patience, right? He's obviously going to work on it from now until week 1, minicamp, OTAs, training camp. But even when the regular season gets underway and the game speed goes up a whole nother level, don't be discouraged if Walker, through the first 4 games of the season, has half a sack and 1 tackle for loss. I think it could be something that the last 4 games will be much more of a better reflection of him at that new position. The other kind of a sneaky change Atlanta's making is, if you look in the secondary, they took 2 safeties, Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman. I don't think Xavier Watts is going to be anointed as the starter his first day on the job. I think he could earn that spot during training camp, but he's going to have to earn it. Other guys are more or less handed that when you're a first-round pick. But Bowman, they plan to move from safety, which he played predominantly at Oklahoma last year, 397 snaps at free safety. They plan to move him to the nickel position, put him in the slot, which was the least amount of usage he got last year as a DB. So this, to me, is a much more kind of drastic change, as they are good at safety with Bates and Fuller and Watts and Helms. So I was a little confused why they double dipped at safety when they already had, like I said, Bates, Fuller, and Helms, 3 good safeties, and then you added Watts around earlier. But now it makes a little bit more sense. They don't view Bowman as a safety. And the Falcons like to do this. They took Matthew Bergeron a few years ago, left tackle from Syracuse. What was the first order of business? You are our new left guard. So Bowman is a bit more of an athletic player than Watts. Watts is a field general. He's going to sit at the back, and he's going to watch the play develop, and he's going to use his instincts and IQ to put himself in a good position. Bowman, while he's not a surefire tackler, he does have a little bit better speed and, similar-ish size, but at 5'10", 192 pounds, you're not too far off the median for what an average nickel corner looks like. This is a slower burn, I'd say, than Walker moving over there. I don't really expect to see much of Billy Bowman at all in his rookie season. 1, he's a 4th-round pick. It's not very common 4th-rounders have huge, meaningful roles unless they just play their tail off in training camp and force the coach to start them, because otherwise it'd be a fireable offense not to, given the way they played. The same way Clark Phillips more or less sat for a good chunk of his rookie season, I don't expect to see a whole lot of Bowman at all in his rookie year. He's going to be working and competing with Alford and Phillips at that nickel spot, and I would guess he probably finishes 3rd in that race, and that's fine. Phillips is towards the end of his rookie contract now. Alford's on a 1-year deal, so let this year be a learning year for Billy, and then next year you can have him in a good spot to be your new starting nickel corner if he looks good this entire year in practice and training camp. So what was your favorite pick from the Falcons? Let me know in the comment section. try and take into account like the value of where you found that player. You know what I mean? For me, I'd probably rank it like number 1 is Jalon Walker, number 2 is Xavier Watts, given that he was the very end of round 3, and then number 3 is James Pearce, who I do like, but you made a huge investment in, whereas Watts I think might be a better value type selection. All right, let's spin the wheel to wrap up today's episode. I picked a couple of people that sent in some super chats during our live show over the entire 3 days of the NFL draft, so appreciate all of you. And the viewer for today's episode is, K9? No, it's Invest Guy. Invest Guy, give me some good stonks to invest in. 2 claps for you. 1, 2. We'll see you all later.